Shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom. In the words of Karate Zaya, we back like Torah addicts out of rehab. This is the story of Mary, the daughter of Eleazar, showing more of what we went through in this time of Feast of Dedications during this time frame that we're in now. All right. I'm going to be reading from Eusebius and then picking up with the encouragement afterwards from the fourth book of Maccabees. All right. So starting with chapter 6, verse 20. And in the sixth book, he writes, talking about Josephus, and in the sixth book, he writes as follows: of those that perished by famine in the city, the number was countless, and the miseries they underwent unspeakable. For if so much as the shadow of food appeared in any house, there was war, and the dearest friends engaged in hand-to-hand conflict with one another, is snatched from each other the most wretched supports of life. This is talking about when it was famine in the city and everybody's breaking in and going after each other. Verse 21, nor would they believe that even the dying were without food, but the robbers would search them while they were expiring, lest any one should feign death while concealing food in his bosom, with mouths gaping for want of food. They stumbled and staggered along like mad dogs and beat the doors as if they were drunk. And in their impotence, they would rush into the same houses twice or thrice in 1 hour. Verse 22, necessity compelled them to eat anything they could find, and they gathered and devoured the things that were not fit, even for the filthiest of irrational beasts. Finally, they did not abstain even from their girdles and shoes, and they stripped the hides off their shields and devoured them. Some used even wisps of old hay for food, and others gathered stubble and sold the smallest weight of it for 4 attic drachmae. So in this section, we're seeing how they're going after things that it says they were staggered along like mad dogs. They're going after things that aren't natural, like they're eating shoes, they're they're eating their girdles, they're stripping hides off shields, and they're devouring them. Verse 23, but why should I speak of the shamelessness which was displayed during the famine toward inanimate things? For I am going to relate a fact such as is recorded neither by Greeks nor barbarians, horrible to relate, incredible to hear, and indeed I should gladly have omitted this calamity, that I might not seem to posterity to be teller of fabulous tales, if I had not innumerable witnesses to it in my own age. And besides, I should render my country poor service if I suppress the account of the sufferings which she endured. There was a certain woman named Mary that dwelt beyond Jordan, whose father was Eleazar of the village of Bethazar, which signifies the house of Hyssop. She was distinguished for her family, and her wealth had fled with the rest of the multitude to Jerusalem, and was shut up there with them during the siege. Verse 25, the tyrants had robbed her of the rest of the property which she had brought with her into the city from Perea, and the remnants of her possessions, and whatever food was to be seen, the guards rushed in daily and snatched away from her. This made the woman terribly angry, and by her frequent reproaches and imprecations, she aroused the anger of the rampacious villains against herself. But no one, either through anger or pity, would slay her, and she grew weary of finding food for others to eat. The search, too, was already become everywhere difficult, and the famine was piercing her bowels. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. And the famine was piercing her bowels and marrow, and resentment was raging more violently than famine. Taking therefore anger and necessity as her counselors, she proceeded to do a most unnatural thing. Seizing her child, a boy which was sucking at her breasts, she said, "Oh, wretched child, in war, in famine, in sedition, for what do I preserve you? Slaves among the Romans we shall be, even if we are allowed to live by them. But even slavery is anticipated by the famine, and the rioters are more cruel than both. Come, be food for me, a fury for these rioters, and a byword to the world. For this is all that is wanting to complete the calamities of the Jews." And when she had said this, she slew her son, and having roasted him, she ate one half herself, and covering up the remainder, she kept it. Very soon, the rioters appeared on the scene, and smelling the nefarious odor, they threatened to slay her immediately unless she should show them what she had prepared. She replied that she had saved an excellent portion for them, and with that she uncovered the remains of the child. Verse 29, they were immediately seized with horror and amazement and stood transfixed at the sight. But she said, "This is my own son, and the deed is mine. Eat, for I too have eaten. Be not more merciful than a woman, nor more compassionate than a mother. But if you are too pious, and shrink from my sacrifice, I have already eaten of it. Let the rest also remain for me." At these words, the men went out trembling. In this one case, being affrighted, yet with difficulty, did they yield that food to the mother. For with the whole city was filled with the awful crime, and as all pictured the terrible deed before their own eyes, they trembled as if they had done it themselves. Those that were suffering from the famine now longed for death, and blessed were they that had died before hearing and seeing miseries like these. Such was the reward which the Jews received for their wickedness and impiety against Hamashiach of Allahim. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. This section we see is terrible. It's showing that Mary, the daughter of Eleazar, who was rich during this time, and everybody going house to house trying to find food. They're searching, they're eating their shoes, they're eating their girdles. They find her and they continue to rob her each and every day, and it's making her mad because now she doesn't have food to eat. So she looks at her child, her baby, her son, and she decides to eat her child. And people coming after her again, they're like, "What is this smell? We order you to, we need to see what you have done." And she uncovered her child and said, "Eat, for I have eaten, and I have saved the remainder for you. And if not, then leave, and I will eat the remainder, for I have already eaten the first half." And it's just showing the wickedness that was going on during this time. And I don't know if I can add on to that. That I don't know the word to say that, but yeah, the horror and amazement that they saw during that time. And I'm going to go to the fourth book of Maccabees, chapter 18. The fourth book of Maccabees, chapter 18, verse 1. O Israelites, children born of the seed of Abraham, obey this law and be righteous in all ways, recognizing that inspired reason is Lord over the passions and over the pains, not only from within, but from without ourselves, by which means those men, delivering up their bodies to the torture for righteousness' sake, not only won the admiration of mankind, but were deemed worthy of a divine inheritance. and through them the nation obtained peace and restoring the observance of the law, and our country had captured the city from the enemy. Verse 5. And vengeance had pursued the tyrant Antiochus upon earth, and in death he suffers punishment. For when he failed utterly to constrain the people of Jerusalem to live like the Gentiles and abandon the customs of our fathers, he thereupon left Jerusalem and marched away against the Persians. Now these are the words that the mother of the 7 sons, the righteous woman, spake to her children. I was a pure maiden, and I strayed not from my father's house. I kept guard over the rib that was builded into Eve. No seducer of the desert, no deceiver in the field corrupted me, nor did the false beguiling serpent, nor did the false beguiling serpent sully the purity of my maidenhood. I lived with my husband all the days of my youth, but when these my sons were grown up, their father died. Happy was he, for he lived a life blessed with children, and he never knew the pain of their loss, who while he was yet with us taught you the law and the prophets. He read to us of Abel, who was slain by Cain, and of Yatazak, who was offered as a burnt offering, and of Yawasak in the prison. And he spake to us of Phinehas, the zealous priest, and he taught you the song of Ananias, Azarias, and he spake to us, Salakia, Azarias and Michael in the fire. And he glorified also Daniel in the den of lions and blessed him. And he called to your mind, saying of Isaiah, yea, even though thou pass through the fire, the flame shall not hurt thee. He sang to us the words of David, the psalmist. Many are the afflictions of the just. He quoted to us the proverb of Solomon. He is a tree of life to all them that do his will. He confirmed the words of Ezekiel. Shall these dry bones live? For he forgot not the song that Masha taught, which teaches, I will slay and I will make alive. This is your life in the blessedness of your days. Ah, cruel was the day, and yet not cruel, when the cruel tyrant of the Greeks set the fire blazing for his barbarous braziers, and with his passions boiling brought to the catapult, and back again to his tortures the 7 sons of the daughter of Abraham, and blinded the eyeballs of their eyes, and cut out their tongues, and slew them with many kinds of torment, for which caused the judgment of Elohim pursued and shall pursue the accursed wretch. But the sons of Abraham with the victorious mother are gathered together unto the place of their ancestors, having received pure and immortal souls from Elohim, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. So this is just more accounts of everything going on in the time that we're dealing with right now, which is the Feast of Dedication. We see all the wickedness that took place in history, and more accounts on why we keep Feast of Dedication and why we have to come back to the laws of the Most High and just be righteous unto Him, like our father Abraham, like Yatazak, like Yaiquab. We have to be more like the mother of the 7 sons, dealing in faith and in righteousness, and then mercy, not transgressing the law, not going against the side, no matter what is promised, no matter what is saying we're going to receive. For we should sacrifice ourselves, no matter what it is. We should sacrifice ourselves, and we will receive it again in the next life, in the latter time. So with that, I yield and say Kwam Yasharallah, Shabbat Shalom, Kodah Shalom, and hope you have a blessed Shabbat.